Khan. Shalom, shalom. First, I'll start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High, whose true name is Yahweh, and I'll do so in the name of His beloved Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ. Um, I'm the brother Aaron from Believers of the Report 144, alongside the brother Dawad, and she'll be joined shortly by the brother Sahir, and tonight we're gonna be going into um, the Sabbath, and just some fundamental principles and understandings on the Sabbath. Brother Dewad, you want to say anything?
All praises to Yahweh, to his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shah. As it says in Acts.
You want me to share my screen?
Sure, that's good.
All right. All right. You got the chapter and verse?
Yeah, Acts 15:21.
All right. This is Acts chapter 15, verse 21. For Moses of old time hath in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day.
Right. So it's important that we, go through these laws and statutes and, these feast days every Sabbath. So, everybody's privy to the information. Um, so we can walk after the order that the Most High set. So we can go ahead and get into it.
Con, yeah, that's a good point. And just to continue, I'll start from the book of Exodus. I'll start with the book of Exodus, chapter 20. And we're going to start at, if you could read, could you read um, verses 8 all the way down to 10?
This is the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verses 8 through 10. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh, thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates.
Con. So, as we read in Exodus chapter 20, starting at verse 8 on down, um, the Most High commands us to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And then he says 6 days we're supposed to labor and do all of our work. So that means handle all of our business, whether if it's still whether if it deals with any type of commerce, or our 9 to 5, as we work here in in so-called America, um, or any type of labor, um, like as far as we got to go and lift heavy burdens and things like that. We're supposed to take care of those things throughout the 6 days of the week. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Most High, right? So the seventh day of the week is referred to as the Sabbath according to the Bible. And within the Sabbath, or on the Sabbath, we're not allowed to do any work. And that includes not just ourselves, but everyone that lives amongst us, right? So it's not supposed to just be Oh well, I'm the man, so I'm gonna keep the Sabbath, but everybody else, they can, go ahead and do their thing. Like everyone else is supposed to cease from any type of work, whether it be that 9 to 5, any type of commerce and things like that. Right. But any of y'all wanna make any points?
Kind of. So, you know, we didn't read verse 11, but you were kind of speaking to it. This is verse 11. For 6 days shalt thou labor. No, Salat. For 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested on the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So this was a day that was exalted by the Most High and blessed. And it's an honorable day to keep, to remember these things that the Most High did, especially in the book of Genesis. Um, that's about that.
Kind of just to continue to harp on the fact that matter of fact, I think in Hebrews, right, it uses the verbiage cease from works. And I think it may be in correlation to verse 11. Let me see if I can find it. That's not there. But yeah, let me pull up Hebrews 4. Oh, man. You do you know what that verse is? You know what the verse I'm talking about in Hebrews 4? I think it said he ceased. Let me see. I think it is Hebrews 4, but let me double check. Yep, yeah, it is Hebrews 4. So it's 4 and 10. Uh, so Hebrews 4 and 10, it said, "For he that is entered into his rest, he also hath ceased from his own works, as God did from his." And this is in reference to the Most High resting on or ceasing from his works on the seventh day, right? Because in this whole Hebrews the fourth chapter, it uses the Sabbath or the seventh day Sabbath as an analogy to the rest that we're going to receive, once we receive the kingdom or inherit the kingdom. But, um, for the sake of the conversation at hand, the Most High, the Bible says that the Most High, he ceased from his rest, on the seventh day, after he finished creating in the first 6 days. So in that same manner, after we finish, or after, because it's supposed to go like this, after we do everything that we're supposed to do and we get all of our work done, we're supposed to cease from any type of work, for the seventh day. Right. And just real quick, just to go into some provisions or some things we're not allowed to partake in on the Sabbath. Let's go to Exodus 31. And if any of y'all got anything, y'all can jump in. If you could you read Exodus 31:12 through 13?
This is the book of Exodus, chapter 31, verse 12. You said through 13.
Yeah, through 13.
Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am Yahweh that doeth sanctify you.
So the Sabbath is a sign between us and the Most High. And when you go into a sign, it's dealing with a token. Similar to um, circumcision with Abraham, and his descendants. Between him and the Most High. Because when you read, I believe it's in Genesis the 17th chapter, it said that circumcision would be the sign, right, or the token. So in the same way, the Sabbath was a sign, or is a sign, Salakia, between us and the Most High. So it's something that we're supposed to continuously keep throughout all of our generations. And as we continue to read here in Exodus 31, we're gonna that point is gonna be emphasized, right? But could you read verse 14 on down to 15?
God, this is Exodus 31, verse, you said 14?
14 to 15.
God, ye shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy unto you. Everyone that defileth it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to Yahweh. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death.
God, so um, as we learn in verses 14 on down to 15, um, you will be put to death, um, especially when we were back in our land and we were autonomous, and we had a temple and a priesthood solidified and set up. You will be put to death for breaking the Sabbath. And it's based on this particular passage, because in verse 14 it says that anyone that defiles the Sabbath and also does any work, any type of work during the Sabbath, they'll be cut off from their people. And so verse 15 is just emphasizing and hammering home the point that you're supposed to get your work done the 6 days, and then on the seventh you cease from any type of work, and that again that includes the not your 9 to 5, um, like any type of uh, work that you got to do on the house. Like you can't go fix your roof, can't do stuff like that on the Sabbath. Because even Yahweh Shai says it's lawful to do well, right? And we're gonna go into that, but it's not doing well um, by by going to clean the gutters on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
That's not it's not lawful. You could have got that done throughout the 6 days. That's when you were supposed to get it done. So it's very important to understand that there's no type of work allowed on the Sabbath day, right? And again, when we had our autonomy and when we were solidified, and as a people had our priests and everything like that set up, you would have been put to death for breaking the Sabbath, right? But any of you brothers want to say anything?
God, so you really see that the Sabbath was really set up to be a reward. Um, because just like in Hebrews, the rest was for that time after you've done all the work. So you're working to get that rest, to be refreshed. But Jake lazy. Jake don't want to work all week and then want to find something to do on the weekend. So, I mean, you don't have to break the Sabbath. It's really set up for your freedom. It's giving you a day of freedom. You don't have to think about, man, what the family going to eat today, or how I'm gonna pay this bill, or this is to free your mind. A whole day just to free your mind from the cares of the world.
Con. Y'all can hear me, right? Y'all can hear me like clearly. I don't
Con.
want
God,
to. All right, bet. Yeah, man. It hit it right on the point. It's simple. The Bible. You know, especially in the Torah, it said throughout all generations. It's not saying only in for Moses and Aaron and them. No, it's throughout all generations.
Con.
Yodo.
Yeah, con. Like it didn't stop at Aaron and Moses' generation, but it,
Right.
it it was supposed to be kept, even past them. You know what I'm saying? So it's a good point. And in something we read in Exodus 20 was to remember the Sabbath, and something that's prevalent today is that a lot of our people, or just as a people in general, we've forgotten the Sabbath. So it was very important that the scriptures were written in a certain way, right? But yeah, if y'all brothers don't got anything else on this particular part, we can move on. Um, so next we gonna go to let's see,
Salak, did you want to continue this point in
31.
Exodus 31? Yeah, you can,
Yeah, we can.
because the next verse kind of goes into what brothers is kind of
Mm,
saying.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so this is Exodus 31 verse 16. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. And so, perpetual is like long standing. It's not something that just ends. And this is verse 17, harping back on the point earlier. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. So that's that, reward.
Con, con. Yeah, absolutely. Con. Yeah. Brother Sire, you had anything you want to add, or you good?
And like perpetual is like ongoing. Like it doesn't stop. And yes, 6 days, get everything you need to get done. Then on the seventh day, you know, Moses was refreshed, and it's talking to us also, not just like I said, it's not just talking to the Israelites back then. It's talking to us now as well.
Con, con. Yeah, and so next we're gonna go into proving that you're not supposed to do any type of commerce or buying or selling on the Sabbath. Okay, so let's start with Nehemiah 10:28. Um, yeah, 10:28 down to 29, if you could.
This is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 10, verse 28. And the rest of the people, the priest, the Levites, the porters, the singers, the Nethinims, and all they that had separated themselves from the people of the lands unto the law of God, their wives, their sons, their daughters, everyone having knowledge and having understanding. They clave to their brethren, their nobles, and entered into a curse and into an oath to walk in God's law, which was given by Moses, the servant of God. and to observe and do all the commandments of Yahweh, our Lord, and his judgments and his statutes.
So first, what this is establishing is that, um, well, really is because this is going into a few things, especially this chapter. But biggest thing I want to establish is that the law of God, which is named here, Nehemiah 10 and 28, and then in verse 29, walk in God's law. We see that it was given by Moses, right, the servant of God, and so we were supposed, because they entered into a curse, or really it should be an oath or an
Oath.
agreement. Yeah. So they entered into an agreement to walk after God's law, which was given by Moses, to observe and to do all the commandments of the Most High, right? So, and the judgments and the statutes, right? So when we continue on, we'll read that they concluded that they wouldn't give, as we see in verse 30, they wouldn't give their daughters unto strange people, nor would they take strange daughters, right? But verse 31, let's jump down there if you could.
This is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 10, verse 31. And if the people of the land bring ware or any victual on the Sabbath day to sell, that we would not buy it of them on the Sabbath or on the holy day, and that we would leave the 7th year and the exaction of every debt.
So right there when it said that, and if, so that's in addition to what was said, right? Because it started off with verse 30, they wasn't going to deal with strange people, meaning they wouldn't deal with strange women, or give their daughters to strange people, or have their sons deal with strange women, right? In addition to that, um, if any merchandise was brought on the Sabbath day to be sold, they wouldn't buy it. They wouldn't buy it from them on the Sabbath or the holy day, right? And this would encompass whichever Sabbaths that we kept, right? That would include feast days and things like that, because those are Sabbaths within themselves, and buying is not permitted on those days. Any type of commerce, right? So this was a showing that we weren't supposed to buy on the Sabbath, right? But before I go and get carried away, um, you have some people, they'll say, "Oh, well, that's Nehemiah. That's not the law," right? Well, let's jump back to Exodus. And then before I go, do any of you brothers want to make any points on Nehemiah?
No, I mean, that's basically going into, the purchasing of merchandise and food.
Right.
Because a victual would, translate to like, some grain or corn,
Right.
some type of, food item. So, they're not purchasing those things, and they're, going back to, some of the things that were written earlier in Exodus. Um, but the brother's about to bring some of those points out. So
So let's go to Exodus chapter 20. And if you could you read just one more time? Could you read Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 10?
God. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yahweh thy power. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates.
Con. So let's hone in on verse 9, right? And honestly, not let's start at verse 8 because it says, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." So this is a day that's being set apart, right? When you look at the word holy, it's going to be the word chodash, um, and that just means set apart or separate, right? So continuing on, we already understand that the Sabbath is a day that's being set apart or separate, right? So this is a peculiar and special day. So if we learn in verse 9 that we're supposed to do all of our labor and all of our work, um, the seventh day wouldn't be alike to the 6 days, right? But let's look at this word for word. It's very important. We look at the words, right? So it's the Hebrew word mala'akah, and it means, let's just look at the biblical usage, right? The outline biblical usage. So we see occupation, work, business. And like I mentioned, you work in your 9 to 5, um, you doing your contract job, you or you might run a mom and pop chain, right? That's not allowed to be ran on the Sabbath. Um, but also, this would also include service, like any services you partake in, like what's like delivery and things like that. Like you wouldn't be allowed to do that. Um, like I said, public business and things of those sort, right? Um,
It's a lot.
well,
Even something as small as like, taking your business emails and things of that nature,
uh,
where it's like a setup for you to, get your bread, but you're not supposed to be doing these things, even though it's not, nobody would say like, oh, these things are laborious, but
right,
you know, you're setting up for commerce or you're setting up to make some money. So um taking those emails or, saying, oh yeah, I'll do this job, taking phone calls, things of that nature, like gotta, leave those things behind.
con, and just to kind of harp on some. That's why when you read in the book of Amos, what's that? Is that Amos 8? Because our people, we were like, it was understood that we weren't supposed to partake in commerce, and so when the Sabbath came up and the new moon came up, you know, that like they were so, you know, whacked out, so to speak, that they were like they couldn't wait for the Sabbath and new moon to be over so they could sell again, right? Let me see. Let me start. Amos 8:1. Thus, thus hath the Lord Yahweh showed unto me, and behold, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, a basket of summer fruit. Then said Yahweh unto me, the end is come upon my people Israel. So like in my people of Israel, I will not again pass by them anymore. Right. And so when you're reading about this similitude or similitude, the Most High, he likens it to a basket of summer fruit, right? And this is like a concept dealing with, like a basket of summer fruit being, this is the best time to pick the fruit, right, or pick the fruit up. And so when you look at verse 2, it's expounding on the fact that our people were in such a wicked state that the Most High even says, "Then said the Lord unto me, the end is come upon my people Israel. I will not again pass them by anymore, or pass by them anymore." So at this point, the Lord he's fed up, and he's about to deal with us, right? So let me jump down. Let me see. Oh, that's the verse, right? Can you read verse 5?
God, saying, this is Amos chapter 8, verse 5, Salat, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, and the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephod small and the shekel great, falsifying the balances by deceit.
Con. And obviously that's wicked in and of itself, because Leviticus 19, I believe 19 and 11, it says neither lie one to another or deal deceitfully, right? And it's different passages to go into that. Even Proverbs the 11th chapter, it says that the Most High, He hates a false balance, right? And that's what this is going into. It's going into I believe the term it might be extortion. But again, this is a wicked practice. But we see at the beginning of the verse, it says, saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn, right? So they knew to reverence the new moon, which would be a Sabbath. And so they knew that they couldn't sell corn on that day, right? And it said, and the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit, right? So they even knew at this particular time that it wasn't allowed to do any type of business or commerce on the Sabbath or any of the other Sabbaths. And Amos, if I remember correctly, I was just looking at this, I think yesterday or the day before. Amos is a contemporary of, I believe he's a contemporary of Isaiah. So this is pre Nehemiah, right? So this is, before that's even said in Nehemiah 10, when they were not going to sell and do any commerce on the Sabbath. So it was understood within Israel that you didn't do any buying or selling on the Sabbath. But any of you brothers got any points y'all want to bring out?
God. And this also kind of leads us to the point in Matthew 12, where the disciples were picking the corn, right? Because the misconception was that, you couldn't gather. So the Pharisees kind of took that, where you couldn't gather a bunch of food, to, basically putting a laborious work on you, where they're just walking through the fields picking corn to eat. Like, same time, they're not having to cook anything, they're not having to set anything up. They're just grabbing some corn to eat. And so what's interesting is I went to the farmer's market not too long ago, and they just had straight corn. And in our mind, we would think, oh, corn is just like, you couldn't eat it. You would have to warm it up first. But like the corn was actually like soft enough just to eat. So it's not anything that's like where you would have to prepare it and gather 12 ears of corn in a basket. That's not what they were doing. So if we could you read Exodus 16 verse 25?
Uh, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 16, verse 25. And Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto Yahweh. Today ye shall not find it in the field.
Right. And so what's being spoken of is I believe the manna um that wasn't going to be found that particular day, because they were given a guideline to gather everything they would have to gather, for their families, which would be, heavy work. And so if we're supposed to have rest on this day, we shouldn't be doing any heavy work. But you can read the next verse.
Verse 26. 6 days ye shall gather it, But on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none.
Right. So, earlier on it was told that, on the sixth day there would be enough for the 2 days. And so what becomes interesting about the disciples is the disciples are kind of moving around as like just free spirits. They're kind of just, I mean, people would say free spirits, but they're just kind of moving around, teaching people and, learning from the Messiah. And they're just kind of, walking around. And so it's not like they're grabbing a bunch of food to hold on that person. So they're gonna get hungry while they're out. And so they're walking through like a cornfield or whatever. And this is Matthew 12. Um, we probably could read that.
Salakia, brothers.
Oh, no problem, no problem.
You said Matthew 12.
Yeah, verse 1.
Con. It's the book of Matthew, chapter 12, starting at verse 1. At that time, Yahushua went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were an hungered, and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat.
Right. So they're not gathering anything. They're just like it's grabbing an apple off a fruit tree and just eating it. They're not they're not putting it all in 7 baskets and carrying it on their head to the next village. They're eating right there. So, the Pharisees are gonna see this and they're gonna get a little flustered. You could read that.
Verse 2. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day.
Right. So pretty much what's happening is they're seeing this and they're thinking, "Oh, this got to be a broken law. They're eating on the Sabbath. They're plucking something out of a tree and or off a corn stalk and eating it. So this has to be some law broken." But he clears it up in the very next verse.
Verse 3. But he said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was an hungered, and they that were with him?
Right. So pretty much what that's going into, David didn't have anything prepared because he was just kind of wandering. He was hiding at this point. So when he went to go to the priest, they just gave him food to eat right there. It wasn't David going to gather 7 pails of showbread. He just went to get he just went to get what he could eat at the moment. So um, you know, and that's talking about, laboring on the Sabbath. So this isn't something where they're laboring, they're just getting something to eat. So, something like going to the store to go, buy something to eat, that's different because now you're spending money. But if you just go grab an apple off a fruit tree, that's not a sin um to just grab an apple. But now if you grab, a pail and you like, let me put 12 apples in here and carry it all the way to the house and you know, that's that's something you gotta deal with. If you can find some scripts to like work that out and that fits for you, I would stay away from it. But yeah. I mean if y'all got any points on that.
Yeah, just one quick point. Uh the matter with David and the showbread, that actually that also happened on the Sabbath.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it it's really cool and it's beautiful how Yahushua he makes that parallel also. And then he continues on and he speaks to the fact that the priests they profane they profane the Sabbath and are blameless. And you have, it's really interesting because it's a gentleman um that I converse with, or I got brothers that converse with him, and he always presents this point about about how the priests, they profane the Sabbath and they're blameless. But I think, and we can go into this in a little bit, but I think it's really important to have a full understanding of the volume of the book, and
God,
and understand the role of the priest, and also understand the language that Yahweh Shai uses, and why he says certain things, right? But if y'all want, I could we can go into the account to show that this particular matter with David, it did occur on the Sabbath.
God.
Fine. So let's go to First Samuel chapter 20. And if somebody could, let me get the book, chapter, and verse. Okay. So, all right. So if you could you read verse? Uh, let's just try to hit the points. You can read verse 5.
God, it's the book of First Samuel, chapter 20, verse 5. And David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, but let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at even.
So right here in this particular situation, well, just to give a little bit of historical context about what's happening here in First Samuel, um, David, by this particular point, is hated by Saul, and so, well, he has, at least he has suspicion, and so he wants to show and prove that. So um, what ends up happening is, for the new moon feast, he's typically, he comes up to, usually he would be there, to attend the feast of the new moon, right? But this particular time, he's not. He's not going to be at the new moon feast, and he's going to hide himself for a period of 3 days, right? So what we're establishing is that this is going into the new moon, right? But what I want to make sure I build up this particular point to show two things: that um, the new, because there are a lot of people within Israel, and of course, no knock to them, but they teach that the new moon dictates the Sabbath day, and so, the new moon comes in, and then 7 days later is the Sabbath day. But we're gonna find in this instance that that's not the case, because the new moon is going to be less than 7 days away from the Sabbath, right? So, without anything further, we can continue on. If you can, could you jump down to uh, verses 18 on down to 19?
This is the book of First Samuel, chapter 20, verse 18. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. And when thou hast stayed 3 days, then thou shalt go down quickly and come to the place where thou didst hide thyself when the business was in hand. and shalt remain by the stone of Ezel.
Con. So this is continuing to reinforce that that the next day that's going to occur is day one, which is the new moon, right? So let's keep that in mind and remember that David's supposed to be hidden for 3 days, right? So let's jump down to verse 24.
This is the book of 1 Samuel, verse 24. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat.
Con. So this is day one of David's hiding, right? And so day one, the new moon comes in, and King Saul, he's sitting down to eat at the feast, the new moon feast, right? So let's jump down to verse 27.
This is 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 27. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, wherefore come not the son of Jesse to meet, neither yesterday nor today?
Con. So now this is day two, and um and the verse it actually says it's the second day of the month, right? So this is day two um within the hiding, and it's also the second day of the month, the day after the new moon, right? So now um let's continue on. Let's jump down to verse 35.
Verse 35. And it came to pass in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David and a little lad with him.
So it's very important to observe the verbiage that's being shown. So it says, and it came to pass in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David and a little lad with him. So the time appointed is is basically referring to the culmination of the time that David should be hiding, right? And when you read in different translations, I believe it highlights that as well. But just let me see if I can find one. It might say it in the NLT. Let me see. Yeah, I mean NLT, it says the next morning as agreed, talking about the agreement that you see in verse 5. Um, let me see. Yeah, for his meeting with David. Uh, it might put it like that in the right here in the NASB. It says, now it came about in the morning that Jonathan went out to the field at the time agreed upon with David, and a little boy was with him. Right. So this is the culmination of the period that David said he was going to hide himself. Right. So let's jump down to verse 42.
Verse 42. And Jonathan said to David, go in peace, for as much as we have sworn both of us in the name of Yahweh, saying, Yahweh be between me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city.
Come. So now David, he's departed now. So him and Jonathan, they saluted each other. Um, they've had their conversation, and now Jonathan and David, they go their separate ways, right? So let's continue on. Can you read 1 Samuel chapter 21 and verse 1?
This is the book of 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 1. Then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? Did you want me to continue?
No, you get right there.
Okay.
So let's keep in mind. It says David says then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. So this is the high priest at this particular time, right? So that being said, David, he's and we read in chapter 20 that David he's in Ramah, right? Let's just read that real quick. So First Samuel chapter 20 and verse 1, it says, and David fled from Naath in Ramah, and came and said before Jonathan, what have I done? What is mine iniquity, and what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life? Right. So the particular area that David was in, he's coming. He's going southward, right? So he's left Ramah by this point, and he's went southward. So when we go to the next chapter, he's departed, and now he's came to Nob, right? And David, just dealing with the historical context in the chapter, he would have been a town or two over from Nob, right? So he would have traveled to Nob, and he's now he's with the priest, right? So now you can jump down to verse 3.
Verse 3. Now therefore, what is under thy hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in mine hand, or what there is present.
So basically David, he just asked for some bread, right? You can read verse 4.
Verse 4. And the priest answered David and said, There is no common bread under mine hand, but there is hallowed bread. If the young men have kept themselves at least from women.
So the priest said it was no common bread, but he only had hallowed bread. And and the priest said he'd give the bread to David and his men if they were what you would call ceremonially clean, right? If they had kept themselves from women, right? Yeah, let's continue on. You can read down to verse 5.
And David answered, Salat, this is 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 5. And David answered the priest and said unto him, Of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in manner common. Yea, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel.
So verse 5, it says these 3 days, right? And so these 3 days, because it said since I came out, those 3 days are in reference to the days that David was hiding himself, right? And just a reference point, let's I think you can look in 1 Samuel like 20 and 19 on down, but it'll speak to that, right? But let's read verse 6 to hammer home the point. So and just to slow it down, let's make sure we understand that 3 days have passed, and it went from day 1, which is new moon, day 2, day 3, right? It's only been 3 days. So at this point, we know it's been less than 7 days. That's for a fact. So now let's get down to verse 6, if you can.
1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 6. So the priest gave him hallowed bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before Yahweh. Put hot bread in the day when it was taken away.
So basically the priest, he gives him the showbread, which he had just taken from before the Most High, and he was going to replace it with hot bread in that particular day, right? So what's very important to understand is that a new batch of bread is being placed here, like in this same day, right? And something to understand is chiefly what the law says about these specific things, right? When you're reading through Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, etc., sometimes people have a hard time just kind of reading these things and paying attention to the ordinances and the procedures that are being commanded. But remembering and understanding these things are very important, because if you're not aware, you'll just read over something like this, and it won't make any sense to you, right? But we understand, according to the law, that every Sabbath day the bread was replaced. And I just let me read this in a different translation, because I believe it makes it plain that the same day that they switched the bread, right? Let me see. Um, NLT is cold. It says, since there was no other food available, the priest gave him the holy bread, the bread of the presence that was placed before Yahweh in the tabernacle. It had just been replaced that day with fresh bread, right? So this bread has just been replaced this day. So according to the law, this would be the Sabbath, right? Let's read Leviticus 24, and let me see.
Verse 5.
Yeah, they agree 5. I think point might be point is 8, but yeah, you can start at 5, read down to 8.
There's the book of Leviticus, chapter 24, verse 5 through 8. And thou shalt take fine flour and bake 12 cakes thereof. 2/10 deals shall be in one cake. And thou shalt set them in 2 rows, 6 on a row, upon a pure table before Yahweh. And thou shalt put pure frankincense upon each row, that it may be on the bread for a memorial, even an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. Every Sabbath he shall set it in order before Yahweh continually, being taken from the children of Israel by an everlasting covenant.
Con, and I'm gonna read it. All right, let's read in the NLT real quick, verse 8. Or in the NLT, it says, every Sabbath day, this bread must be laid out before Yahweh. The bread is to be received from the people of Israel as a requirement of the eternal covenant, right? But point is, every Sabbath day, this bread must be laid out. So that's proving the fact that there in Samuel, when David is dealing with the high priest, he actually this is actually happening on the Sabbath, right? Y'all brothers got any points y'all want to touch on? Well, but with that, I just wanted to show that particular moment. Make sure, yeah, that particular moment that Yahweh Shai made mention to in Matthew 12 about the matter with David and the showbread, that happened on the Sabbath as well. So all of these, all of the correlations that the Messiah made, about situations on the Sabbath, because he's being pressed, he correlates it back to different situations, scenarios, and manners or matters that occurred or occur on the Sabbath, right? Starting with David, with the matter of the showbread, and then also how the priests they they profane the Sabbath, and they're called blameless, right? But any brothers got any points before I move on, or before I continue on?
I mean, did you want to speak to the blameless?
Yeah, I was gonna go into it, but I didn't want to. I want to make sure I gave some space.
Nah, I mean, you spoke to the point beautifully, brother.
On all praises.
Elder Sire, did you have anything?
He didn't call me elder sire, but nah, you breaking it down perfect, bro. You doing your thing. All praise to Most High.
All
God.
praises. All praises. Yeah, but let's address the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless. So if you could, can you just matter of fact, just read can you read just read verse 5 if you can.
God. This is Matthew chapter 12, verse 5. Or have ye not read in the law how the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless?
So when you go into his word for, well, again, it's dealing with the priests in the temple, but let's look at this word profane, right? I believe it's going to say desecrate, if I remember correctly. Yeah, profane, desecrate, to desecrate, right? So let's first understand what the priests do. So let's go to the book of, I believe it's Numbers 28. And you can read Babu Kasha. If you could read yep. You could read verse 9 on down to 10.
God.
This is the book of Numbers, chapter 28, verse 9. And on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs of the first year without spot, and 2/10 deals of flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and the drink offering thereof. This is the burnt offering every Sabbath, besides the continual burnt offering and his drink offering.
So something that should be understood is Salakia, is that this is first and foremost a type of work that's being done, a relatively laborious type of work being done. They're sacrificing animals, things like that, but also fires are being kindled as well, right? And I believe you read that throughout the law about a continual fire, right? But let's just look at what the law says about um, setting a fire. Let's go to the book of Exodus 35. I believe it's 35 and 3. And if you could you read, Exodus 35 and 3.
This is the book of Exodus, chapter 35, verse 3. And ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day.
So on the Sabbath, we were commanded not to kindle a fire on the Sabbath day, and we see that this is to the congregation of the children of Israel, right? But this is not This is not an umbrage or in contradiction to what the Most High told the priest to do in Numbers 28, right? Because we have to understand that the Lord, He commands the scriptures. I believe it's in Sirach. It says that He gave no man license to sin. Let me pull that up in the let me see, license to sin, KJV. It's in Sirach somewhere. Yeah, brother, see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Con, could you read that?
As the book of Sirach, chapter 15, verse 20. He hath commanded no man to do wickedly, neither hath he given any man license to sin.
Con. So, with that being said, in Numbers chapter 28, and then also I believe I think it's Exodus 27, um, you know, the Most High, He commands that a continual fire um, be burnt, right? And He also commands that animals be sacrificed, right? And these type of laborious tasks are to be done by a specific party, being Aaron and his sons, right, and the priests. Now, this is commanded by the Lord in the law, right? So this party, which are the priests, they're carrying out the commandments of the Most High. So when Yahweh Shah said that they profane the Sabbath and they're blameless, well, they're just that, blameless, because they're keeping the commandments of God. And if they were to not do that and say, "Oh well, you said not to kindle a fire," they would be at fault, or to be blamed, because they're not carrying out the commandments of the Most High, right? But to anybody else in a normal circumstance, for anyone outside of Aaron, and the priests, this would be, a desecration of the Sabbath, because that's something that's not allowed. They're not allowed to carry heavy burdens. They're not allowed to, light or kindle any type of fires, or things like that. And that's dealing with, a rigorous process, to, kindle a fire, right? But, the rest of us, outside of the priests, we're not allowed to do those things. So it would be understood as a desecration, or a profaning of the Sabbath. But the priests are blameless because they're carrying out what the Lord said to do in the scriptures, right? But do any of you brothers, y'all got any points y'all want to touch on?
You bringing it out? Oh,
Nah,
praise.
bro. The word says it, and you breaking it down.
All praises, all praises. Yeah. Brother Dewad, you got anything you want? Anything else you want to go into pertaining to the Sabbath?
Um, I mean, I believe all the major points are laid. We do have the situation with the brother that was, gathering the sticks, and you know, and that's juxtaposed to the priest continuing a fire, but this brother was gathering sticks to set a fire, and him not being of the priesthood, this is this is not permitted. It's not permissible for the everyday Jake. This was very specific to the sons of Levi through the lineage of Aaron. So when that brother did that, he had to go and be an example of what not to do. And nobody wants to be the brother that becomes the example of what not to do, and basically receive a judgment um, that you can't come back from. So it's important for us to get back to the Sabbath. Um, can you give me that in Baruch? What was that, Baruch 5?
Baruch 5. Mm.
Might be off a little bit. Maybe it's 3-5.
3 and 5, you think?
Something like that.
I can read it. It says, remember not the iniquities of our fathers, so like our forefathers, but think upon thy power and thy name now at this time.
Right. So essentially, this is Baruch's request for the Most High to not think of the things that our forefathers have done to sin against him, but to pretty much think of the ones who are living at this point and doing the will of the Most High. So we got to get to the point where we turn back and repent from our sins. So even the things that we've done in the past won't be counted against us. But we can turn back to that covenant and be brought back and do the will of the Most High on the portion after we have repented. Because as it says, is the Messiah the minister of sin? No. And so we know that we can't continue in sin that grace may abound. So we have to turn back and, keep the Sabbaths and all of the feast days that he has given and those things that he set up.
Con, all praises.
Oh, for real though.
Con, yeah, I mean that was a beautiful point. Brother Sahir, you got anything?
Well, I just slid over to Baruch 4. I don't read it like that, but in chapter 4, verse 1, it says, "This is the book of the commandments of God and the law that endure forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die." That joint hit different though.
Yeah, Baruch is a good book, man. That's Jeremiah's scribe.
Yeah, I did see Baruch in one of Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah. So I know it's legit.
Yeah, I think what I wanted was 2 verse 30 as well. Because the Most High knew how this was all going to play out from the beginning. It wasn't like a surprise to him, like, oh, they turned away. I can't believe it. For some reason, Jake think like, the whole world, they just think like the Most High creates everybody and everything's just playing out by surprise. And they even think when it says the Most High repented, that means like he changed his mind. All that meant was he turned away from from killing the people. He showed mercy. That was it. But you can read that.
This is the book of Baruch chapter 2 verse 30. For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves.
Right. So, if you notice, like pretty much like when our people got here, they were singing Getaway Jordan. They were singing songs about Joshua, songs about Moses. And, over time, we forgot what we were singing about. People were singing about the Messiah is coming back soon to free us. But like all these songs become forgotten, and then we just kind of lean into like being like the rest of the world. And so this is the land where we were captive, and so it's high time. And we see it going on. We see people waking up, but we got to wake up and remember the ways of our fathers and keep these commandments, because we are bound to them. Our forefathers made an oath on our behalf to do these things. So it's just time to get back.
Con, all praises. Yeah, well said. Well said through the spirit and power of the Most High.
All praises.
Con, but yeah, man. If it'll be nothing further, man, we can we'll end it out, man. We'll end it out by giving all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High, whose true name is Yahweh. We're gonna do so in the name of His beloved Son Yahweh Shai. Brother Sahir, you want to say something?
Oh man, it was a great lesson. All praise to the Most High for these good brothers right here. But yeah, man, let's get to it.
All praises. Yeah, let's get to it. Let's start keeping the commandments. As the book of Joshua, the 24th chapter. Serve the Lord in sincerity and in fear, and and let's not be like our people. In the book of Amos, the 8th chapter. Where the Sabbath, it was there, and they were looking to do wickedly after the Sabbath, right? That's all they could look forward to. But let's keep the law, statutes, and commandments, including the Sabbath, in sincerity and in fear of the Most High, right? And let's make sure to show our love by rejoicing and celebrating these days with joy and myrrh, right? As the scriptures say. So so with that, we're gonna say shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.